little tidbit about my family. My wife, Ashley, she has some really crazy dreams. She remembers these dreams vividly, like down to the nitty-gritty details. Now, maybe she would have had some of those crazy dreams on Friday, and the ladies at the retreat, they would have been able to got that experience of what it's like to hear those crazy dreams had she got a little bit of sleep. I do want to apologize on behalf of my wife. Apparently during pregnancy, she has picked up this kind of sleeping quirk that she's got. At about maybe 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, she will just kind of smack the face that's the closest to her. So it's good that you didn't have to actually share a bed with her this week. It's happened to me 3 times. Nothing is worse than being woken up at about 2 a.m. going, and then to see her go, oh. You can't really feel mean and angry about that. But that being said, I think, well, let me just say, I think next time I'm just going to go to bed with like a catcher's mask on. I'm going to like be proactive this coming week. But back to Ashley's crazy dreams. Ashley, in the morning, after she's had one of these really vivid, crazy dreams, she will be able to remember them in crazy detail. And some of these dreams are off the wall, what she'll say. It's like listening to some kind of sci-fi film. And I find it funny on the occasions after she shares those dreams, after she's like, okay, here it is, and she just dumps it all on you. Then she'll follow it up with the question, what do you think it means? Just free advice, marriage advice for anybody out there. Please do not say, I think it means you're crazy. That is a bad idea. Do not say that. Ashley must have been a little bit crazy because 8 years ago, she ended up saying, I do to me. So there has to be a little bit of crazy in there. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my wife. I think she's amazing, she's wonderful, dreams and all. I would pick her all over again. But I am super glad I do not have to answer that question, to be able to give her a response to what that dream was or what that dream meant. I don't have to do that. Today, we're going to continue our story in the book of Daniel. We've been looking at the sermon series, Daniel Serving the Sovereign God. Last week, we saw how God, He allowed Daniel to understand some dreams and visions. It was kind of a foreshadowing of what we're going to kind of start to see this week in this chapter. The king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, he has a dream. And he asks a whole slew of people to interpret this dream. Tell me what this dream is and interpret this dream. And if they failed, they died. So, there it is, no pressure. You fail, you die. That got me thinking. So this week, our sermon series is entitled Truth or Consequences. Let's pray. Lord, I pray as we come before you today, Lord, that you would just speak to our hearts through the book of Daniel. Lord, that you continue to challenge us as we dig into this book. Lord, as we see this example, Lord, that you would just open our eyes to what you have in store for us today. And we thank you for it. In Christ, in your name, amen. We'll start right off in Daniel chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. In Daniel chapter 2, 1 through 3, it says this. Now, in the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was troubled, and his sleep left him. Then the king gave orders to call in the magicians, the conjurers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. So they came in and stood before the king. The king said to them, I had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to understand the dream. I want you to imagine this. Put yourself in the shoes. The king, he is being plagued by dreams. And these dreams are actually robbing the king of his sleep. And that's what is happening at this moment to King Nebuchadnezzar. So King Nebuchadnezzar, he calls together some of his people that could kind of maybe interpret some of these dreams. People that were maybe familiar with incantations People that were able to transform things or by illusion type of stuff. Those that were maybe well versed in what is known as astrology, which the Chaldeans, they were known for. King Nebuchadnezzar, he gets all these people together and he says, I had a dream. Would you tell me what it is and interpret it for me? We see what happens in Daniel chapter 2:4. Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic. O king, live forever. Tell the dream to your servants, and we will declare the interpretation. Okay? It's important to understand historical context. Okay? Standard practice of the day was for that person that wants the interpretation to tell the dream firsthand, to tell what happened in the dream. And then, the people that you're telling it to, they would then tell you the meaning of that dream that you had. You would then get that interpretation of your dream. However, King Nebuchadnezzar, he kind of flips the script just a little bit. He says, yeah, I'm not going to do that. You're going to tell me the dream, and you're going to tell me the interpretation of the dream. And so, in the next couple of verses, in 5 and 6, it says this. The king replied to the Chaldeans, the command from me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you will be torn limb from limb, and your houses will be made a rubbish heap. But if you declare the dream and its interpretation, you will receive from me gifts and a reward and a great honor. Therefore, declare to me the dream and its interpretation. Truth or consequences. That's basically what's presented to these people. These magicians, the conjurers, the sorcerers, the Chaldeans, they were to tell the dream, and then they were tasked to interpret that dream. This was a very clear command, and that command was going to stand firm. There was no change that the king was going to have over this. If they shared the truth, then they were going to be greatly blessed. However, if they are not able to, and they are wrong in their telling of the dream or their interpretation of the dream, then they're going to be torn limb from limb, and their houses are going to be destroyed as well. Talk about your grave consequences. If you're wrong, you're dead. You don't get a second chance. There's no do-overs on that. Verses 7 and 9. They answered a second time and said, let the king tell the dream to his servants, and we will declare the interpretation. The king replied, I know for certain that you are bargaining for time, inasmuch as you have seen that the command for me is firm, that if you do not make the dream known to me, there is only one decree for you. For you have agreed together to speak lying and corrupt words before me until the situation is changed. Therefore, tell me the dream, that I may know that you can declare to me its interpretation. Now, as I read this, to me, it kind of sounds like King Nebuchadnezzar, perhaps in the past, he has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Maybe he feels a little bit like these people have placated him a little bit, that they've kind of told him some stuff, that they've maybe deceived him. But either way, the command from the king, it stood firm. You're to tell the dream and then interpret the dream. There was no wiggle room in this. This was the way it was going to go. You're going to tell me it, and then you're going to interpret it. In Daniel chapter 2, verses 10 and 11, it says, the Chaldeans answered the king and said, there is not a man on earth who could declare the matter for the king, inasmuch as no great ruler, king or ruler, has ever asked anything like this of any magician, conjurer, or Chaldean. Moreover, the thing which the king demands is difficult, and there is no one else who could declare it to the king except God's, whose dwelling place is not with mortal flesh. So, as you kind of hear from this, there's one tiny problem to the king's request. The Chaldeans, the magicians, the sorcerers, all of these people, they knew that this was an impossible request that the king had laid out before them. They couldn't do this. I can't read your mind, king, But if you tell me what you have, that you have dreamed, if you tell me it, I can tell you what it might probably, perhaps, somehow work out to be. None of them they were able to tell the king. This was an impossible request. They could try to give an interpretation of that dream, but they couldn't tell him the dream. You know, this gets me thinking. Let me ask you, how aware of your limitations are you? Are there things in your life that's like, yeah, I just can't do that. I'm just not capable of doing that. One of the biggest areas of danger for me in my life is thinking that I can do it in my own strength. All of us, we desperately need God, and for the record, we need Him for everything. There is no area that we are capable of facing in our own strength. You will fall on your face hard. Maybe not immediately, but you will. We all need God's strength to face all these things that we go against. Daniel 2, 12 and 13. Because of this, the king became indignant and very furious, and gave orders to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain. And they looked for Daniel and his friends to kill them. There's two words that pop out to me. The first word is indignant. Right? That word means became enraged, extremely angry. The other word that pops out is furious. And that word means highly incensed, wrathful. Both of these, they're kind of similar words, but they echo how truly upset King Nebuchadnezzar was. And just hearing their confession, their lack of ability, that they couldn't do what he requested, or that they were denying him in some way, it got him wrathful. It got him raged. The king, he became so full of rage that he said, kill all the wise men. Not just the ones present, all of them. Every wise man. That's including Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, all of his friends. I want them all dead. I don't want any of these wise men around because they've all failed me. And he just kind of gets upset. And Daniel 2, 14 to 16 says, Then Daniel replied with discretion and discernment to Arioch, the captain of the king's bodyguard, who had gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He said to Arioch, the king's commander, For what reason is the decree from the king so urgent? Then Arioch informed Daniel about the matter. So Daniel went in and requested of the king that he would give him time, in order that he might declare the interpretation to the king. So, Daniel, he is found by this guy by the name of Arioch. And Arioch, he is tasked. He is tasked with the task of slaying all the wise men of Babylon. You know, what I find really interesting is how Daniel responds to this, how Daniel handles this. He goes and he asks the king for time. Now, he asks for time not to go away and to come up with some kind of a scheme. He asks for time to go, and as we'll see in just a second, to go and pray. In Daniel 17 and 18, it says, Then Daniel went to his house and informed his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, about the matter, so that they might request compassion from the God of heaven concerning this mystery. They prayed, so that Daniel and his friends would not be destroyed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Daniel, he takes time to bring this to his friends for the purpose of together praying over it. Let me ask you, when things pop up in your life, when you're faced with something, are we quick to take time to come together and together pray over a matter? It's important for us to pray together. Please do not ever just rush right into action. Take the time to pray. You always have that time. If you don't, then you need to make that time. Because if not, you're going to end up having problems later on. In Daniel 2:19. Then the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. I want you to get this. Daniel and his friends, they pray. But it doesn't sound like there is an immediate answer. The skies don't open up. There's no audible voice that just is booming from heaven that says, "This is your answer." It doesn't happen. It seems like there's a little bit of time that happens between that he lays down and at night he gets this vision. And God reveals this mystery to him in this night vision. And after this mystery is revealed, what does Daniel do first? We're going to see this in just a second. But Daniel, he thanked God. He thanked God. He had an attitude of gratitude. Before he went and did anything, he wanted to thank God. And I want you to listen to how Daniel praises and gives God thanks. You see it in Daniel 2:20 through 23. Daniel said, "Let the name of God be blessed forever and ever. For wisdom and power belong to him. It is he who changes the times and the epochs. He removes kings and establishes kings. He gives wisdom to wise men and knowledge to men of understanding. It is he who reveals the profound and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise. For you have given me wisdom and power. Even now you have made known to me what we requested of you. For you have made known to us the king's matter." Daniel, he acknowledges that wisdom and power, it comes from God. He acknowledges that God is sovereign, that God is in control of everything. And God, he is the one that revealed this mystery, and Daniel knew that it came from God. And Daniel, he takes the time to thank God. It is so important for us to take the time to stop and thank God before we rush off to do any kind of action. Stop and take time to thank God. In Daniel 2:24 through 25, it says, "Therefore Daniel went in to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and spoke to him as follows. 'Do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Take me into the king's presence, and I will declare the interpretation to the king.' Then Arioch hurriedly brought Daniel into the king's presence and spoke to him as follows. 'I have found a man among the exiles from Judah who can make the interpretation known to the king.'" So after Daniel, he stops and he gives thanks to God, Daniel goes to this guy, Arioch. That guy that was responsible and tasked with killing all the wise men of Babylon. And he is asking him to then go get a request so that he can come before the king to interpret the dream. In 26 through 30, the king said to Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar, "Are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and its interpretation?" Daniel answered before the king and said, "As for the mystery about which the king has inquired, neither wise men, conjurers, magicians, nor diviners are able to declare it to the king. However, there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. And he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will take place in the latter days. This was your dream, and the visions you in your mind while on your bed. As for you, O king, while on your bed, your thoughts turn to what would take place in the future. And he who reveals mysteries has made known to you what will take place. But as for me, this mystery has not been revealed to me for any wisdom residing in me more than any other living man, but for the purpose of making the interpretation known to the king, and that you may understand the thoughts of your mind." King Nebuchadnezzar asked Daniel if he is able to tell him the dream and give me the interpretation that I seek. This is cool. Daniel, he actually echoes what these other wise men of Babylon say. He says, there's no one on earth that's able to fulfill this request. No one can tell you your dream. No one can really interpret it apart from God. There is this God in heaven who is able. He is the one who gave you this dream. And he is able to reveal that mystery of your dream to you. Daniel, he even dangles a little bit of a carrot before the king. Your dream, it has something to do with future events, if you're really wanting to know what it's all about. Again, the source of wisdom, the source of power, it comes from the one true sovereign God who is in heaven. It didn't come from Daniel. It never would have been able to come from Daniel apart from God. God was the one. He is the source. In Daniel 31 to 35, you, O king, were looking, and behold, there was a single great statue. That statue, which was large and of extraordinary splendor, was standing in front of you, and its appearance was awesome. The head of that statue was made of fine gold, its breast and its arms of silver, its belly and its thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You continued looking until a stone was cut out without hands, and it struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and crushed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed, all at the same time, and became like chaff from the summer threshing floor, and the wind carried them away, so that not a trace of them was found. But the stone that struck the statue became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Daniel, he tells King Nebuchadnezzar what he dreamed. He says, there's this glorious statue that you saw. The head was gold. The arms and the chest, that was silver. The belly and its thighs were bronze. The legs, they were iron. And the feet were kind of a mix of iron and clay. And then there was this great stone that struck the statue. And the stone, it destroyed the entire statue to the point that nothing remained. And this stone became great and took over the whole earth. Here's the interpretation. The interpretation, it's found in Daniel. Here's the interpretation of the statue dream. It's found in Daniel 2, 36 through 45. This was the dream. Now we will tell its interpretation before the king. You, O king, are the King of kings, whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power, the strength, and the glory. And wherever the sons of men dwell, or the beasts of the field, or the birds of the sky, he has given them into your hand, and has caused you to rule over them all. You are the head of gold. After you there will arise another kingdom, inferior to you. Then another third kingdom of bronze, which will rule over all the earth. Then there will be a fourth kingdom, as strong as iron. Inasmuch as iron crushes and shatters all things, so like iron that breaks in pieces, it will crush and break all these in pieces. And that you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron. It will be a divided kingdom, but it will have in it the toughness of iron, inasmuch as you saw the iron mixed with common clay. As the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of pottery, so some of the kingdom will be strong, and part of it will be brittle. And in that you saw the iron mixed with common clay, they will combine with one another in the seed of men. But they will not adhere to one another, even as iron does not combine with pottery. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which will never be destroyed, and that kingdom will not be left for another people. It will crush and put an end to all these kingdoms, but it will itself endure forever. Inasmuch as you saw that a stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it crushed the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will take place in the future. So the dream is true, and its interpretation is trustworthy. King Nebuchadnezzar, God has blessed you. You have been greatly blessed and richly, abundantly given things. Everything is in your hands. Basically, what he's saying is Babylon, it's the head. Babylon is the head of gold. Following the Babylonian Empire, there's going to be two not as powerful, not as glorious kingdoms. You got the Medes and the Persians and the Greeks. The Medes and the Persians, they are the chest and the arms of silver. And the Greeks are the belly and thighs of bronze. Following those kingdoms, there will be a fourth who will by force crush and dominate. And that fourth kingdom, it's the Romans. And the Romans, they are going to be the legs of iron. It is possible that they gave them 2 legs because at some point they had 2 capitals. That's a theory, that's subjection, but perhaps that's the reason. The kingdom, the next one that they have, it's kind of Rome Part 2. It's a mixed kingdom of iron and clay. And it's divided in terms of time. It's got the first kingdom and the second kingdom, and it's kind of split. And that time that is kind of happening in between the first and the second, that is known as kind of the church age. That's the time that we find ourselves currently situated in. And it's during that last kingdom that the God of heaven will set up his forever kingdom. And it's going to be all on earth, and it will never be done away with. It will be a forever kingdom. And all other kingdoms, they're going to be done away with. Daniel, he delivers this interpretation. And as soon as he's done delivering it, listen to how King Nebuchadnezzar responds. King Nebuchadnezzar responds in verses 46 and 49. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face and did homage to Daniel, and gave orders to present to him an offering and fragrant incense. The king answered Daniel and said, "Surely your God is a God of gods and a Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries. Since you have been able to reveal this mystery." Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many great gifts. And he made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief prefect over all the wise men of Babylon. And Daniel made a request of the king, and he appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the administration of the province of Babylon, while Daniel was at the king's court. The king, he hears all this, and he pays homage to Daniel. The king acknowledges the God that Daniel serves. He acknowledges that he is a sovereign God, a revealer of mysteries. And Daniel, he has bestowed gifts. He is made the ruler of all the province of Babylon. And he is made the highest in regard to all of the wise men in all of Babylon. Daniel, he doesn't forget his friends who prayed with him. He asks the king about his friends. And they are put over the administration of the province of Babylon. These are all really cool, intricately awesome things that God does. Especially when you consider it is given to a captive of a foreign land. And when you stop and really think that Daniel, he had only been in Babylon for about 4 years at this point. It's pretty crazy. God had been blessing. So what? Daniel knew his limitations. Clearly, Daniel couldn't do any of this without God. It all had a source, and that source was the God above, the sovereign God that he serves. Let me ask, how much do we rely on the sovereign God? Can we understand that God has everything under control. I think at some level we grasp that. But are we willing to really trust God? To rely on Him in everything? Even the things that don't go the way that we plan them to go. When God provides, when God answers prayer, how quick are we to give Him thanks? To reciprocate that? To recognize the source that provided the answer? Remember, Daniel, he was in a hostile foreign land when all of this happened. Yet that never stopped Daniel from sharing about the sovereign God he served. Truth or consequences, all of us, we need to be eternally grateful for what Jesus Christ has done for us. Apart from that reality, we are all hopeless. Now, I say that to say, none of us are better than anyone else that has not yet realized that truth for themselves. All of that means is that we serve a God who did what none of us could do on our own account. Jesus, He died on the cross. He rose from the dead to change our eternities and to change our present. Are you living like that today? That's my challenge. Let's pray. Dear Lord, I thank You for Your word. Lord, I thank You that it speaks to us. Lord, this account is thousands of years old. Lord, I thank You that it is still true. Lord, that we still serve the same sovereign God that is in control of everything. Lord, that You are able to work things that seem like impending doom for Your glory and our good. And God, I pray that You just challenge us, Lord, to just follow You as You have called us to do. That we would be willing to take that step and just trust You with everything else, Lord. May You do that in our lives, Lord. May we be willing to let You rule. And thank You for all that You do. We praise in Your name. Amen. At this point, we're going to transition to communion. Communion is a great time for us to kind of remember what God has done for us, to kind of pause from our life, to kind of reflect on things. So if there's anything that is standing between you and God today, this is a wonderful opportunity for us to kind of make that short. That list, not a very long list, to get right with God. If there's anything, I challenge us to do that. God's Word challenges us to do that. At this church, we practice what is known as close communion. That means if you are not a member of this church, but you have accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, we welcome you to participate in communion with us. It's not just reserved for people who are members of our church. There is a warning, and I want to draw our attention to this. There is a warning that God gives us regarding communion. And you see that in 1 Corinthians 11, 27 through 32. Therefore, whoever eats the bread and drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner shall be guilty of the body and the blood of the Lord. But a man must examine himself, and in so doing, he is to eat of the bread and drink of the cup. For he who eats and drinks judgment to himself, if he does not judge the body rightly. For this reason, many among you are weak and sick, and a number sleep. But if we judged ourselves rightly, we would not be judged. But when we are judged, we are disciplined by the Lord, so that we will not be condemned along with the world. I just want us to kind of take a couple of minutes just to kind of pause, reflect, think about our lives. If there's anything that stands between us and God, get that taken care of. In just a few minutes, I'll ask maybe Paul and Jim if you guys would come forward for communion.